I'd like to call May 8th meeting of Bedford County School Board to order. Mr. Marcus Hill let us know he would not be here tonight to attend his son's college graduation. Ms. Johnson, if you would call the board. Call the roll.
Mr. Daniels.
Here.
Mr. S. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Holbrook.
Here.
Dr. Hebot.
Here.
Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mrs. Purvis. Here. Mr. Vice Chairman, you have a quorum.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Hill.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right. The agenda is approved. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, 2.01 Superintendent's Report, Mr. Dupere.
Thank you. Today, May 8th, 2025 marks 11 days of school remaining for the 24-25 school year. Time has definitely flown. As you may already know, my first semester was busy with 53 SWOT analysis to include discussions with the central office staff, executive staff, school-based administrators, faculty and staff, parents, and even students promoting Governor Youngkin's Executive Order 33, a bell-to-bell cell phone-free education. I am going to highlight the most prominent again in our discussions in this meeting in a moment. But first, as we move to the end of the semester, let me take this opportunity to recognize the seniors who will be graduating on Saturday, May 24th from Stanton River High School, Liberty High School, and Jefferson Forest High School. Whether you move to college enrollment, engage in local employment, or enlist in the military, we congratulate you on your accomplishments and wish you the best with your educational and career choices. The BCPS family and your families are proud of your accomplishment. Also, I would like to thank the individual school administrators, leadership team, central office staff, faculty and staff for their present work in the SOL testing process and making this a successful year. Your hard work has contributed to an overall success as our division in individual student growth and accomplishment and contribution to our current ranking of 36 out of 131 divisions for academic performance for the 23-24 year. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to making this a BCPS, making us stronger. Now you'll see that we have a poster on the back wall there that highlights that. And as I have been traveling around in the last month, and you've heard me talk about that, it is kind of sad that most people don't know this. And so we have to work much harder at getting this out and letting the constituents of Bedford County understand that our faculty and staff have been working very hard over the last 10 years to get us from the 57th range, I think 10 years ago, to 36. Just know that our teachers are working very hard to maintain this, and this is very important to them. Back in the fall, I promised to travel back to each SWAT location and have a discussion of the findings that a lot of people were invested in. And I want to continue that conversation. Tonight I'm going to highlight some of the probably top priorities. But my promise to the schools, and I've mentioned to a couple of them in the last week or two, is to get back next year in the fall and use that time to have a deeper conversation. But this time, instead of just mentioning them, let's talk about how we can solve some of these or how we can create solutions for some of these. So I wanna go through what I think are the most important ones, and you're gonna see two jump out in four categories, and this is why I'm doing this tonight. And I can tell you that I've had conversations already with community leaders and even church leaders to see how we can give assistance to what I think are the two biggest issues that will show up in weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So our strengths, and it's part of what's on that board right there, is passionate, dedicated, knowledgeable, professional, and supportive faculty and staff. There isn't a time that you can't go to a campus and notice the intent of our teachers, a large majority of our teachers, and just the way they go about teaching our kids. The second aspect there is a strong school pride, strong academic achievement, and positive faculty and staff influence on the children. The weaknesses came up as salary, retention, turnover of faculty and staff, state and local funding, perceived student mental health issues related to ACE or adverse childhood experience, and perceived lack of parental involvement. The opportunities are continue to grow local business and donations and partnerships, extend CT offerings, increase student service support, however that perception looks, and again, find ways to increase parental involvement. In the threat category, lack of parental involvement comes up again. Too many single parent and grandparent homes, reversion funding, vaping, a slowing pipeline of teachers, and social media influence. In my SWOT conversations, it always came up that there was an issue. And I would say it could start from principals, it could go through school staff, it could go through parents. Parents would be very quickly to bring it up because they could see the lack of parent involvement in a town hall, or they had friends and they knew the scenarios. But almost always, the two discussions that were most outspoken were lack of parent involvement, and the one that concerns me the most, both of them are very concerning, is there are too many single moms and parents, grandmothers in Bedford County. Now, I don't think it's just Bedford County, I think that's a national trend, but it does show up pretty prevalent in our discussions. And while I do honor the single dads who have already taken on this role, I need to say that as a whole, to get our kids to where we need to get, we need to start generating programs that will not only support single moms, but also encourage dad involvement. And I know what weekend is did we just have the dad?
Fatherhood events on May 17th.
May 17th, Parks and Recreation is hosting a father, or I should say almost like a field day.
Yeah.
To encourage dad participation. So it's not just noticed in our town halls, faculty and staff and administration. This is something that the county has picked up on as well. I do honor the dads that are super active in their kids' lives, and it's very important, and they do get it. But I think we need to have some community conversation about, how we get dads more involved, like this field day. And also, we need to have conversations about how we assist and single moms and grandparents, or even the single dads. And I know that that already exists in our local churches, in some of our community organizations, or you wouldn't see the field day coming up. But I think we need to continue that conversation and get a little deeper into it as to how we actually can support better our single moms. When I go to some of these schools, I don't necessarily think that we note it on an application, but when you understand and you talk to counselors on the campus, and in some case parents, a lot of the issues that these kids are dealing with stems from the fact that they come from a single parent home. So I think this is a national crisis, but that doesn't mean that we don't take it serious here as one of our big crises as well. So I do honor the dads that are doing a super bang-up job, and we need to find ways. Ultimately, when we improve in this area, it grows our kids emotionally, socially, spiritually, and also enhances their academic development. I also want to thank the community programs that we just highlighted, because I know in talking to several church leaders that they do have programs, but they're asking me, how can they do a better job? So that discussion is going to continue in the fall. Last week, the executive team met with the Superintendent Student Advisory Board, and the biggest concern of the students that sat in this room was the volume of vaping on their campus by their peers. And while we were having the discussion, one of the things that troubled me most, and I think it troubled the executives that sat here, is that these students would acknowledge that some of the kids actually get their vapes from their parents. I just find that very disheartening. And so I think the kids talked about coming back next fall and creating some type of awareness program, but we also need to start reaching out to our parents and say, hey, listen, vaping leads to other drugs. We know that. And so if you're going to be that lax on it, we need to educate our parents as well, not just our kids. We need to educate our parents as well so that they can understand the significance of what they are doing to their child when they acknowledge that it's okay. Our children need adult advocacy. Their future depends on it. And so I want to make this a fall issue as well, but I'm not going to do anything with that until we sit down with the student advisory again, because they had great ideas. They were really engaged, and we need to look to them for answers as well. My final discussion this evening pertains to the request made by the BCPS school board at our last school board meeting on April 10th. The closing remarks of the board chair asked for a discussion about elementary capacities and highlighted the forest zone where there are capacity issues in multiple schools. Some schools are too low, some schools are very high, near the 100%. We, the executive team, were tasked with coming up with a redistricting plan that could be initiated as early as FY 25-26 school year, starting on August 13th, 2025. The executive team has spent countless hours constructing this plan that involves Boonesboro Elementary, Thomas Jefferson Elementary, New London Academy, Forest Elementary, and Otter River Elementary. Following this report, the executive team will present this plan with the justification as to why this is a valid concern of the school board and the executives. And our plan will include our recommendation as to how we move forward and how it prepares us to address the current capacity needs providing a full future growth of 5 elementary schools in the forest zone. This concludes the superintendent's report for May. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions or comments? Good. Thank you very much. Move on to what you just mentioned, 2.02 Forest Redistricting Board Request Progress Update. It's the whole executive team.
Well, you're gonna get us all
Tag team.
in this process.
I'm going to lead us off, so good evening. The presentation we're about to present is put together by the executive staff and is based upon, once again, the board's request to look at rezoning in the forest zone. This was a combined effort that affected many departments. Various members of the team will be presenting as we go forward through this presentation. And would like to ask the board members to hold off on the questions. I know you might be tempted, but some of the slides might answer those questions and they build off of each other as we go along. So the first slide we have here is really the goals that were presented to us by the board, the objective goals and constraints that we wanted to follow. We did focus only on the forest zone and only elementary schools because we weren't going to be switching into high school or middle school. To reduce the student population at Forest Elementary in New London, where we saw capacities very high. We wanted to increase the number of students going to Otter River. We wanted to create a reasonable timeline to implement the plan, which we presented a little bit later in this presentation. And as we were going along, we did look at some bus efficiency. So there will be minor tweaks to some things, not big movement, but some things that would bring some bus efficiency as we were looking at the overall plan. So the next slide, Mr. DePere is going to take that, and that's looking at new developments in the forest zone.
So about a week and a half ago, I met with Jordan Mitchell, Director of Community Development for Bedford County, and we had a discussion about the 2023 redistricting plan, in which there were 5 schools on it. 2 of those schools have been inhabited, as he would put it. There are 3 still remaining, and the 3 that remain on page 3 are lines 1, 3, and 4. And so you'll see that those completion dates are 26, 27, they're about a year out from starting that inhabiting. That's his opinion. If they get delayed, or if there's, in some cases, houses already being inhabited, it means completion of that. So the others were left over from the previous, and we discussed those and complete what he thought was completion dates. And so these are not my fabricated time zone timelines, these are his. You'll see the number of students on the right-hand side that would be affected by these developments opening up, using a calculation of what percentage of the houses would have kids in the elementary level. When you, let me make sure I got the right button there. It's the one on the side. When you look at page 3, oh, I got it. When you look at page 3 and 4, you'll see collectively there are now 9 additional developments that were not on the 2023. And when you look at, and I'm gonna go back to this, when you look at these 2 slides, you'll see that predominantly in 2023, most of the growth was in the Forest and New London area, Forest Elementary and New London areas. And what kind of was startling as we went through this is that when you start looking at this, you'll see all of the new developments that are now popping up in Otter River, TJ, and Boonesboro. And, I have asked the question multiple times, and over the last month, I now know where the boundaries are more specifically. When you ask people, is there any growth in Boonesboro, they're like, no, probably not. It's just, it's not there. But when you look at this, you'll see that it actually is. Now, something really intriguing about the stables on Coffee, I pass it every morning and I had no idea where the boundary was. And going through this process with Jordan, there are 15 homes in that development. When you drive into the development, the first 2 houses belong to Lynchburg, and the other 13 behind it all belong to Bedford. So theoretically, you could live next door to somebody whose kid goes to another division. That's how crazy that one is set up. We ran into several developments like that, where literally the line goes right through a yard. So it complicates things. And so what I want you to understand is most of this page and some of the others in page 4 are what would be considered new developments. And so there's one of them in there. You'll see the second one, Kitsmore Development. In Jordan's mind, this gentleman does not move very fast. So he could move this year, or he could move 5 years from now. The land is there, and I think it's even been stripped to some degree. So it really depends on the builder and how fast they want to move through the process. So what we've done is we've taken all 12 of these that are either partially or not started yet. For instance, I'm gonna go back to another one in my neighborhood. I think it's Boonesboro. I'm having a hard time saying that. Boonesboro Meadows is in my neighborhood. I drove through that last week, and I would say it's only about 40% built out. And there are houses under construction, there are lots cleared. So while it may not show up this year, it will show up in the next 5 years. So we took all of these, put them into the equation, and then put them into our zoning redistrict. And so, because here what we don't want to do is we do not want to create this and then 2 years from now have to recreate it, if that makes sense to you. So plan for 5 years out, and you'll see some of the capacities that we've come up with will show for allowance for growth, okay? So I'll pass on.
So we started looking at numbers and capacities and adjusting for movement between boundaries, also looking at these new developments. So I'm gonna go over some of the logic that we went over to create the numbers that you see on this chart. We took the old capacities provided by previous facility studies. That was our starting point, and that's what the board is most familiar with when we're looking at capacity of schools. We decided to go back and do a high-level look at that, because before you start moving kids, we wanted to kind of ensure that we had pretty accurate capacities and to make sure we're reporting correctly on that. So we took the number of classrooms that were in the school that could actually hold students in a full-size classroom, multiplied by 21.5 students, which is our average between K through 5 for staffing. We then allowed for about a margin of about 10%, because kids don't always come in neat packages where you can divide them up that way. So if you go to capacity, it might not be exactly like you could split them up in the classrooms. So we took off about 10% to allow for that and for other programs that we might need in those schools. We did look at the common space available in each of the schools to make sure that they could hold all the students that were in that school. All of them were fine, except we think New London. The cafeteria and library are very small, and so we kind of took a little bit off of their capacity. Even though they have the actual classrooms, the common space would be difficult to hold all those students and get them through lunch. The executive staff we were moving boundary lines around, and we were trying to target about an 87% threshold at each school as far as capacity. The actual that we came up with after moving things around was 84 to 93 between the schools. So then we moved the boundaries, we moved the students, we added the projected influx from the new developments that Mr. DePere just mentioned to account for those over the next 5 years. And this chart lists what the percentages would be once we moved the boundary lines, included the new students for moving those around. And you can see how many students in that one column moving from, what school they're moving from and what school they're going to, and how many impacted. Finally, I'd like to just say that this chart is only K through 5. This does not include preschool programs. We place those where we have capacity. So those can be moved around if we need to. Those are not factored into this, so I want the board to be mindful of that as they look at these capacities. So from that, we will go to the charts and look at lines that we drew, and Dr. Calvert will be leading us through that.
It's hard for me to do this without touching it, okay, so I apologize. So this is just an overview. We're going to more detailed maps here in a second, but I first want to give you the 4 areas that we have changed. So the biggest area is down here. The brown section that you see is currently, all of this is currently New London. And where we have the red divided line, everything to the left of the line will now be, if you take our recommendation, Otter River, and the right side of the line will be New London. There is a shift also in Forest. This area right here is Lake Vista, and currently the right side of Lake Vista goes to TJ, and the left side of Lake Vista, which is Forest Lakes, goes to Forest. So it would have efficiency with buses, possibly talking to Art Lipscomb, our trainer for the Forest area. That would possibly remove a bus because the buses would all be going to the same school. So that's a change in that area. These changes up in here are very minor changes, only to a few students. As you can see, this is a very odd shape. Forest goes all the way up in here where this is currently Forest, all of this. Odd shape. So what we've done is we will move this boundary line, and this will all be Otter River. There is only 4 students up in here that will go from being in Forest to then going to Otter River. Same thing on this line. There are 4 students across this line that will be moved to Boonesboro instead of going to Forest. And that is simply for bus efficiency. So getting more detailed maps just so that you can see, and we talk about the roads. Like I said before, this is all Lake Vista. Currently, the right side of Lake Vista goes to Thomas Jefferson, the left side goes to Forest Elementary. So we would be saying that all of Lake Vista would go to Thomas Jefferson. Okay? Which means the following roads would be affected. And those roads would switch from Forest to Thomas Jefferson. Now, Otter River is such a big area that I'm going to show you with this map, but then we're going to go north and south of 460. So the Otter River zone, as you can see once again, the red line, kind of falling down to Blackwater. Left of that line will go to Otter River, right of that line will go to New London. So if we could kind of expand, go to the next slide and go what's considered to be north of 460, because then you can see. The line goes across 460, it goes up, crosses Harvest Lane, diagonally towards Bellevue Road and crosses right at Bellevue Matthew Talbot. So part of Bellevue, Matthew Talbot, Terrace View, Good Road would all be on the Otter River side. If you go south of 460, the line runs parallel to Blackwater Road. So everything to the left of this line would go to Otter River, to the right, New London. So that would be Pisgah, Cobbs Creek, Blackwater, and there's more roads that are named down in there, and we can give you the list on the following slide. And this is the biggest move because it's 83 students. Up here, the move from Forest Elementary to Otter River, the 4 students up in here would be Elk Valley Road, Old Syfax Road, and Perry Lane. I think there's like 2 students on one road and 1 on each of the other ones. In Boonesboro, on the next slide, there are 4 students right along that edge on Scarlet Lane, Grassy Mountain Lane, and Tabernacle Lane that would go to Boonesboro. And like again, these 8 that are moved at the top are for bus efficiency. Cleaned it up while we did everything else.
So one of the things that was mentioned to the executive team as we were working was there going to be a possible financial impact or staffing impact. So in looking back at our goals for redistricting, our purpose wasn't really to save money. The overarching goal was to balance schools and provide enough room in our current schools for students coming out of the growing number of developments in the Forest area. And in a sense, saving money by not adding mobiles or not having to add on to schools. There are a lot of variables to consider when thinking through the financial and staff impacts. If the plan were approved as is, with the current enrollment projections that we have, there may be an addition of 1 FTE possibly at Otter River. Currently, that school is so small, it has a half-time librarian, a half-time counselor, some other half-time positions that would go full-time. So possibly the addition of 1 staff member. When reviewing bus routes with Art Lipscomb, our lead driver, there was some discussion, as Leanne mentioned, that one of our bus routes may be able to be combined, which would reduce a route. But I would say we need drivers desperately, so we would not reduce a driver. We need all the drivers we can get. I think the largest consideration for the board is really timing when we talk about staffing impacts. There will be some adjustments in some of our work locations because the teachers will have to follow the students. If 83 students leave an area and go to another school, the teachers for those students need to also go. There will be some adjustments even with paraprofessionals. So as we've looked at this, it would really be preferable to plan through this and give us a little bit more time in our timeline so that we're not telling staff who are going to be signing contracts pretty soon that they're going to have to move locations, work locations in July or early August. Right now, it looks possibly like it would affect 6 teachers and 1 or 2 aides if the plan were fully implemented. The other thing that I think is really important and very significant, and it's a significant conversation that I think we must have with the IGA committee and then with the school board as a whole, and that's our zone transfer policy. Currently, the method of limiting school capacity is denial of requests from parents to receive a zone transfer to a school that they're not zoned to attend. Currently, Forest Elementary and New London Academy are closed to zone transfers because their schools are over 90% full. We've also closed Otter River Elementary due to low attendance numbers, and that allows us to keep our class sizes small enough so that we don't have to add additional staff. In the past, when we've left it open, we would possibly have 11 kids in each class because we've had to add a teacher, so we wouldn't have combined or multi-age classrooms. So we limit our zone transfers at Otter River also. You can see in this chart that the current in-county transfers listed are students that already have approved transfers, which allows them to stay, according to our policy, until the highest grade at that school. Or if they have siblings coming into the school in kindergarten, that those siblings are also allowed to attend and stay until they get through 5th grade. So those students are what we would consider in the zone transfer policy to be grandfathered in. We also do have a lot of employees' children who have students in schools that they work in or in a school close to where they work. They may be at Forest Middle or Jefferson Forest High School and they drop their elementary students off at an elementary school. When you're looking at most of our out-of-county approvals, which is our current out-of-county, that 33, most of those are employees, teachers, staff coming from Lynchburg City or outside of our zone to teach for us. So they bring their children with them. That's one of their perks. We have a few tuition-based students who come from Lynchburg City over to Bedford County, and they pay the tuition every year, but that number is small compared to employees' children. It's important to note, I think, that we start the zone transfer request policy request on March the 1st of each year. So we've been getting zone transfer requests. Principals have been looking at capacities, they've been looking at grade levels, and we have been approving and denying some of those requests already for kindergarten and for sibling transfers for next year. So we've already made some decisions because that timeline opened up before the board request to look at redistricting. The reason I'm sharing this information with you is because if the board votes to move forward with redistricting right now, the executive team would have to go back and look at each of these approvals that are currently in place and see if they change our estimates or decisions. And I'll tell you why this is really important. If we take and we move forward with the redistricting plan and we don't make a change in our zone transfer policy, I think one important thing that we would have to understand is all of the students who have been in schools, let's for example say a child has been at Forest Elementary since kindergarten and they're now in 4th grade. We have to make a decision. Do we allow that student to stay? Do we allow all those students to stay until they reach the 5th grade? If so, this redistricting plan won't work because we're then putting even more kids on top of that. But let's say we have a student who should be going, I'm making this up, to Bedford Elementary, but it's easier for their parents to drop them off at Forest Elementary. So this child has been at Forest Elementary, doesn't live in Forest Elementary zone, but has been going there since kindergarten and is grandfathered in under the current zone transfer policy to stay till 5th grade. So a student who didn't live in the Forest zone to start with may be able to stay at Forest Elementary while removing children who are living in the Forest Elementary zone and have, that's where they bought their house, that's where they've been comfortable. We are moving those children out. So I think that's an important thing we have to talk about with our zone transfer policy. Those are the little snags that are going to, I think, catch us. So when we think about moving forward, I think there are some options that we have to consider so that we don't create unfair caveats for parents who may not want to move their children or who think they may be able to stay under a zone transfer. Again, I just want to reiterate, we've looked at the numbers a lot of ways. If everybody's grandfathered in under this plan, we will be over capacity in what we're suggesting. So we put some options here. You could think about revoking all zone transfers in the forest zone and require all students to go to the school they're zoned for. This will reset the numbers and open up capacity even more. As you look at the slide prior to this, you can see Thomas Jefferson has 68 current zone transfer approvals, 68 kids there that, have a zone transfer, they should be in another school, or they live in another school district, plus 17 out-of-county approvals. That's mostly because most of the forest zone schools have been closed, so they all kind of end up at TJ. We have 22 at New London that are already there. So that's a lot of zone transfers in that area that we need to make a decision about. So do we revoke all of those transfers, reset everything, and then look to see what the capacity would be with our changes? Or would the board like us to think about freezing forest zone transfers moving forward, including sibling transfers, and allow the students currently there to stay to 5th grade? This will then take 5 to 6 years to make the full change of the school boundaries, and it may separate siblings and families that have to start at the new school while their siblings are grandfathered in at the old school. I think no matter what, if you want to do something immediately, we have to say we're going to freeze any more zone transfers tonight. So if we're pushing to have something ready in August, then the zone transfer policy, we have to stop those transfers temporarily so that we can get a good gauge of how many kids, where they're going, and what they're doing. And then I think we have to say, we have to look at our zone transfer policy. We have to change it to address the future request and how we're going to handle students who are currently in that school, who are moving, who we may consider grandfathered in. And then I think we need to decide if this policy also affects the Liberty and Stanton River zones, or is it just going to affect the areas we have capacity issues? Usually when we have a policy, the policy is for the whole division. So there are a lot of things that I think we have to consider, because we have to clean up this policy and we have to think about all the consequences of that before we move forward, because that's going to influence our decisions about who's going where. Again, I just want to say, if we grandfather in every student, then the redistricting plan really is not going to be successful. The only way it could be successful is to continue on like this for 2 or 3 years, announcing that in this particular year, the school boundaries are changing, so be prepared for it. But again, that would be a board decision. I will say that again, we think timing is very important. If we rush to do the plan and implement it of August of 2025, I feel like families need more time than that to plan for after-school care. A lot of our families go to certain schools because they can go to after-school care at the YMCA, or they can be taken to some of the after-school care programs near our schools. I also think it would give our families some time to work with their students through the change, really having an opportunity, if this is moving forward, to, I know it sounds silly, but to say goodbye, because they're going to be going somewhere different next year. And then I think as a district, I think it will ensure that we are being very transparent with parents, and we are communicating very clearly and very timely, rather than trying to rush it over the summer. I know we feel like summer's a lot, but in actuality, it's about 8 weeks. And so that's a lot to get in and change bus routes and communicate and give parents an opportunity to really take this in. So I think we're going to share a little bit more about some options possibly for you to consider moving forward.
So slide 18 is the executive's recommended timeline. So you obviously at this point know which way we're leaning. And that is to taking all of next year to do this properly. So if you look at this list right now, you'll see May decided if there is agreement to move forward in the planning, that is actually now. June and July update and approve new zone transfer policies, and I'm gonna explain to you why that's important as to this timeline. In August, notify parents by letters that are affected by changes and also start the public hearing process, which is by law. September, vote on redistricting plan, which means literally focusing on the maps you saw and hopefully that those wouldn't change much from what they are right now. October, November, work with the county to have new school zone maps drawn, printed, and give the county its time to update its GIS systems. Spring, prepare new bus routes, move staff, and 2026 implement the district plan. Now, as you look at that, there's a couple little things in there that I think I'm excited about. Spring of 2026, we're right now going through a bus audit. And to move forward in the middle of a bus audit kind of nullifies what they're doing. And that bus audit in itself could save us routes and condense. And so that is in process, and we'll probably have some conclusion to that in the summer. Now, if you go to slide 19. Oh, I guess
Oh, I'm so sorry.
we have it. We're in control. Nope,
Yeah, that's
I had it
okay.
upside down. If you look at this, there's basically three options for you to consider tonight based on our proposal from 18. And if you redistrict by August 25, as Dr. Woodford said, that gives us about 8 weeks. That means that you would have to literally have work sessions to provide parent input, change the zone transfer policy, which is significant because it takes us about approximately 2 meetings to change it with the IGA. If you moved forward, it would have to be done sooner. There's also consideration of moving faculty. There's a lot in there. The second option is redistrict by the timeline that we're suggesting on the previous slide. And I want you to look at that just for a second, because this is kind of where we got inundated with this process. If you move forward and do the 25 of August, everything on that has to be done in literally 30 to 40 days. And to give you another 20 to 30 days, because she was talking about 8 weeks, to give you to implement. And that means notifying parents of the actual changes of moving staff, changing bus routes, all of the things you see on there right now would have to be done over the summer. That's a daunting task that in some cases we think would not be fair to students or teachers. Because we don't want to have a conversation with a teacher in, wow, late July, you need to go clean out your office, you're moving over there, and in a month you're at such and such a school. We just want to give people more time to do that. So this would allow us to go through, have our town hall meetings, make the changes to what we think is necessary in zone transfers, and to implement the process in a fashionable way. So have I covered that as far as the 30-day to 12-month changes? So what we want to do at this time,
There's one more option.
one more option, yes, there is. You could do nothing. We do not advocate you do nothing. We do not, I'm gonna say this again, we do not advocate you do nothing because we have schools sitting at near 100% capacity. If these developments that I talked about prior do finish in the next year or two, then we've got major problems of putting kids in those classrooms. And then you could be proposed with, I don't know, I don't like the idea, but putting a portable on a class, on a campus or 2 or 3. I don't like that option at all. Those are throwing money, that's throwing money away. So to me, option 3 is not a good option. You understand the difference between option 1 and option 2. And literally putting all of that into option one and having it all done is almost insurmountable when you throw in just the transfer consideration. So at this point, we want to open it up to questions. And any of us can give you an answer.
I have several. Appreciate all the hard work goes into doing this. I get it, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of time I'm sure spent in the GIS, and that's not a fun system to go through.
It's not at all.
I'll get it. So a couple questions I had. When you figured the estimates, when you spoke with the zoning person at the county, did you also consider the type of developments?
Yes.
You know, townhome versus, 'cause I know
Yes,
like I
townhomes
saw,
versus
I
units.
saw Grandview was in there, and their patio homes.
Yeah,
Typically, those aren't, I would imagine that's probably skews.
well, if you looked over to the side, some of those had really small numbers. But if you go into like, even like Boonesboro Meadow, those are single homes.
That's how we
And I would think they're only 40% built out. So there's gonna be a lot of growth in Boonesboro over the next 2 years.
Well, they're still gonna do their next phase. It's gonna be.
What's that?
They're gonna do another phase. It's gonna be a little while before they're gonna get ready on the next phase.
Well, I drove through it.
Yeah.
Just because I was
Yeah,
curious. I
there's a
drive by
lot
it
of
every day.
construction, yeah.
I drive by it every day and I've never driven in here. Let me go in here. And there's a circle drive and there are cul-de-sacs that go to basically empty lots. And there are houses, they're designated. They've got all the underground in, they've got all that stuff ready. You literally purchase that land, they can start building pretty soon.
Gotcha.
Because you have all the underground. So something like that would really skew. And I think there's, what did we say, 94 kids that potentially could come out of that, I think?
Which one?
Boonesboro Meadow,
43.
43. So there was one with 90 something. And so if we don't make those plans, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball again
No, I get
2
you.
years from now.
So I had the advantage of being able to tour several of these schools over the last couple months. I would agree, Forest Elementary is busting at the seams. That one is, at capacity, or close to capacity. I'm not sure if it's at it, but it's real close. Is there an option to kind of skewing your first option there of just holding off and just redistricting, because you just got on your pretty small redistricting, just that one subdivision off of Lake Vista, and then that little section of Boonesboro, taking that away from Forest. Is there a way in our whole procedure to just do that school and then kind of hold off on the rest until later on? Because some of the things I was looking at, 'cause obviously I think my district is probably affected more than most, population-wise. I mean, you're looking at the Terrace View subdivision is right now about 2 miles away from New London Academy. If we switch the Terrace View subdivision over to Otter River,
Sorry, I was trying
Oh,
to
don't
get
worry.
to your chart.
I think for the full board and your question, and I'll just answer that, they don't overlap, so they can be taken independently.
Yeah.
If we had some going to TJ, Forest Elementary, New London, and they were just all going everywhere, it all depended on, but I think they're two separate, they're not overlapping, so the board could do that if they like. And I will say this on New London, when we re-looked at the capacity, you can see we went up on the capacity there. I think, when you go look at and walk around that school, we think there's more capacity than what we were using in the past.
Yep.
So that's just for the board's information.
And they also have a lot of preschool programs that we could adjust and
that's my big thing is I completely agree there needs to be something. I'm just concerned to make this quick of a reaction to where you're telling a family, hey, you've got and I have got kids at New London Academy right now. If I were to go and tell my wife right now, hey, we're heading to Otter River, she's gonna have to change the way she does her entire life, where she goes grocery shopping, where she goes, she drops the kid off on the way to Bible studies or on the way to pick up things. I think we're asking a lot of families in just 3 months to go, all right, change up your whole life. Because I know that's a big factor, at least in my family. I'm not sure about every family, but in mine, that would be a huge adjustment.
I think one of the biggest ones too, is we've talked about this, is how people use or create their own aftercare. And so they are in close maybe their babysitter's in close proximity to the school they're at now, and all of a sudden they're way over here. Now they've got to, make that transition where maybe that nanny or whatever could pick that kid up 2 minutes away, and now all of a sudden it's a 20-minute drive. So I think we ran into the most conversation about, and a lot of the zone transfers indicate that, is how do people create their own aftercare if they don't keep them at school?
Yeah, I had a question too, but if we did a limited fix like that, we'd still be tied into the legality and the timeline of direction number one. Still have to fit all that stuff in there, public notice
Correct.
and all that into a short time zone, making that impractical, even if you're gonna do a small zone transfer.
Well, everyone can keep asking questions on the last. Anybody else?
I like the idea of waiting for the same reason that Mr. Hill was talking about. I'm also thinking that if you wait and have a little more feedback from parents as to where they're going to go, and you said something that kind of caught my eye about some of them have been thrown into Forest or TJ because they just couldn't fit them in other places at the time? Or
No, what I meant was, so people ask us for a zone transfer request and they may say Forest Elementary. And we might say, we don't really have any room at Forest Elementary, it's closed to zone transfers. The only option you may have is Thomas Jefferson right now. So that's why there's such high numbers there, because a lot of parents, because of daycare options, headed to work, that kind of stuff. So they'll choose Thomas Jefferson because it has a capacity, yeah.
So if we did these zone transfers, we might have some people who, I'm sorry, not zone transfer, if we do the zone changes, we might have people who would actually be able to put their children into Forest Elementary when they couldn't before. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right, as long as we move,
If we're still doing zone transfer.
yeah, but I think it all depends on that zone transfer policy, because you've got some who are grandfathered in because Forest hasn't been closed that long. So we still have some that are out of zone there, we haven't added any, and it really just depends how much we get the capacity down.
So if we get feedback then, that's what I'm saying, if we get feedback from these parents and they have the option to put them in Forest, that could change some of these numbers a little bit more too. So I think it's probably a good idea to give that time to let parents kind of let it fester and hopefully not fester.
And I think
It
that
increases transparency.
Yeah.
it does, it allows, and I think it will give us time to go through all the zone transfers and see. It may be that students are already at the school that we would be moving kids to. Maybe it already works for them because they're close to that school or something. And it gives us time to really look at that policy to make sure we make the right decision for families, because there are lots of things we can't think about in the brainstorming, but parents, they're living it, so they think about it and can share with us.
So on the zone transfers, has there been an analysis of how that policy could be changed and how much it would balance the numbers? Even if we didn't do,
So much depends on what you do.
Yeah, we have
Like, it's
not.
a different number for every single
Right.
thing you do.
That's part of the, this is really meeting with the county and looking at bus routes. Even though those maps look simple, it took days.
yeah,
I'm
understood.
trying to, so we didn't get to that part, which is part of what we probably need to do before we talk about
If we
zone
have a year of
transfer.
time,
That's right,
Because, I
like
mean-
really looking to see how those zone transfers are impacting all of those schools, yeah.
because we want people to be able to do zone transfers if it makes sense, but it's certainly unfair, right, to say, hey, we're gonna do all this redistricting when we could have solved a lot of the problem by looking at the zone transfer thing first, right? And I know there's people out there that have zone transfers and they don't wanna hear, hey, we won't have this anymore, but if we're looking at a fair approach,
Yeah.
right, we have to at least look at that
Right.
prior to saying, oh, you live here, but we're still gonna make you go to this new school, right? my other question was, you mentioned that some of the teachers may follow the students. How will that be determined? In other words, like which teachers? Is it a
It's usually
volunteer
seniority.
thing?
No, it's youngest person in,
Yeah.
good move.
Soon as the last person hired.
Okay. So it's purely
And it
just
may
seniority.
be, yeah, you may be in kindergarten, you may have to go to first grade, or you might be in second grade, you have to go to third grade.
And there's
I
no
think we
option
have-
for allowing for volunteers first?
I think you can do
Well,
that to
yeah,
see, but it, you know, that's,
Doesn't usually
the
happen.
principal has their grade level, so if somebody wanted to go to the other school,
Yeah.
the existing principal would go, what's that gonna do with mine and stuff, so that would be a discussion.
We're not saying we wouldn't consider it, we're saying it doesn't usually happen that way and we have to go, we use the same policy we would if we were riffing or something, it's the same.
And I do think,
I was just gonna say on the transfer policy cleanup, I don't think that fixes Forest Elementary.
Yeah.
You got 19, you got 12 or 13 in there right now.
I don't think so
If
either.
you say everybody goes away from there,
But it
13
may,
kid,
no.
it's still, with all the developments coming, Forest Elementary is gonna be kind of a bugaboo
Yeah.
here.
I don't think so either, but it may help with some of the smaller
Yeah.
schools. But even if it doesn't help, it's still the idea of looking at that prior to telling people that they have to go to a new school, I think it's just a fair approach in my opinion.
So here's a oddity. If you decided you were gonna stay on the August 25 date and you did not change zone transfer, what would you suspect would happen tonight as soon as this meeting's over?
It
Everybody's
won't
gonna
work
put in a
if there's,
zone
if
transfer.
you allow zone transfers and we move all the lines, it will not work.
Agreed.
It will blow it out of the water.
Well, I think I'm not gonna speak for the whole board, but I think we all agree that moving this in 8 weeks is
Tough.
it's really tough. I think we all see that. But in that year's time, looking at the zone transfer is a big part of this, I think. And then-
absolutely.
I mean, you know, I'm sure the teachers will understand, but when you're told that you have to go work somewhere else, that's a big deal, right?
And a lot of times, we can handle those issues when we have a year. We kind of know somebody might be retiring or resign. So you can start to move people and have good conversations with them. And sometimes it just works itself
Or
out with
tell
attrition.
them when they're hired, this may
Might
be,
Right. I think the last thing we wanna do is walk into a school and say, hey, all you new people, you're going over here. That's just not the way we
And
wanna do
there's-
business.
And I'm not on the HR side, but if, you know, you're at one school teaching kindergarten this year, you go to the other school, it's like, in July, we're gonna say, you go to a new school, but you're gonna teach fifth instead of kindergarten. And it's all the lesson plans and stuff, and it's a lot for a
That's
teacher
a
to do
big
to get
deal.
prepared for, so
Yeah.
we're trying to be considerate of that.
So I think what we're all saying, and I'm sure Mr. Holbrook might wanna say something, is we definitely we have to look at this, obviously, but we wanna do it the smartest way possible that helps our families as much as possible and our teachers. We don't wanna, you know, we're playing with people's lives here, so we have to be methodical.
And our children, I
Right.
mean, it's their, elementary schools are like your home, so it takes time to make.
Another question I had, and this is just from my personal experience. We're adding 87 students, if we did all this, adding 87 students to Otter River. I know right now if I am coming from Bedford to Lynchburg in the afternoon, I try to avoid 221 right there like the plague. Because there are already cars backed up into the road. If we add 87 students to this, that's potentially 87 more car riders. I don't know that Otter River can hold that, you know, that capacity of
Car ride.
just car riders there. I know I went to Boonesboro the other day, they have a nice long route. Obviously New London has a long route to kind of, they don't have that at Otter River. And I don't know that they can have that, I'm not sure how the back of the property looks. But it's something I would also like to see in this is kind of a traffic study. I'm sure VDOT would have something like that of,
The other
How that would
thing
look.
that, one of the caveats that the board gave us was just to consider forest zone and not cross the zone. But as we are looking, there are some of these areas closer to Big Island, closer to Bedford Elementary. So I don't know if that's something, if we're gonna take some time, you know, think about that as a board, if you want us to look at that, or just keep it within the forest zone, so.
I know that the Big Island Teachers have voiced that because they're so small, they don't have the funding sometimes for the extra counselors or whatever. They want students. So, I know that doesn't always isn't the most popular thing, cause Big Island's kinda tucked away, but it's beautiful. And it's a wonderful little.
Most of our zone transfer requests are due to daycare options. We have issues with that at Big Island, at Manita, Huddleston, so when we're developing, it would be nice to develop
All right,
after school care.
Do we have an option to add any daycare?
Not within the school, we've tried before, but
all right, it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna go to public comment and then we'll come back to this, because I have some, I don't know if Mr. Holbrook had any questions. But I do and have some statements and then we can move on, but we are gonna move on right now to public comment. Looks like I'm not gonna have to read the closed session notes, what we have to say to go into closed session, but I get to read this very long statement. So my amount of reading is not going down, it's going up. So public comment, the public comment portion of tonight's agenda is limited to 40 minutes. Speakers are asked to state their name and voting district. The school board is here to listen to your comments, but will not engage or respond to speakers during this 40-minute period. Please remember that this is a public meeting and that we expect all speakers to refrain from foul, profane, abusive, or hateful language during their comments or any time while in attendance during this meeting. We also ask that speakers keep their remarks objective and about the school in nature. Please keep all comments limited to matters related to the public schools and any comments that are harassing or amount to a personal attack against any identifiable individual, whether a board member or staff or student, or having the potential to cause unnecessary delay or disruption to this meeting are prohibited. This is a public meeting for public matters. If a speaker is not present when their name is called, we will proceed with the next name on the list. An individual who has not signed up to speak may not substitute for that time slot. Individuals will have 4 minutes to address the board. An alarm will sound when the individual has 30 seconds remaining, and a second alarm will sound when the allotted 4 minutes have expired. When this second alarm sounds, please discontinue speaking and allow the next person in line to come up to the podium. Should you be unable to finish your comments, please give them to Mrs. Johnson, and she will give them to the board members. Please do not adjust the microphone at the podium as it has been positioned for optimum audio quality. Public comment tonight. First on the list, we have Amanda Dean.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Amanda Dean, and I am a proud graduate of Jefferson Forest High School and a dedicated teacher in Bedford County Public Schools. Over the past 21 years, I have taught in 2 counties. After a decade in a neighboring division, I returned home and am now in my 11th year with BCPS. I am here tonight to speak regarding policy GC-BDC and its impact on teachers needing sick leave donations. In my first year of teaching, I needed a tonsillectomy. To minimize disruption and save sick days, I scheduled surgery around Thanksgiving break. At that time, my school system had a much more flexible sick day donation policy than our current BCPS policy. Teachers could donate days to anyone at any time without requiring the recipient to use all of their own days first. Thanks to the generosity of my colleagues, I did not have to use a single sick day of my own for this surgery. The support I received allowed me to focus on healing and returning to my students at my best. That school division still maintains this policy today, and it continues to make a real difference for teachers in real need. In Bedford County, our current policy requires teachers to use all of their own leave before receiving donated days with additional restrictions. I recently experienced this firsthand. After months of illness, a hospital stay, and 7 weeks of FMLA leave, I had to exhaust all of my sick days and personal days before I was eligible to request donated days, despite colleagues offering to donate their time to help me. Only after missing 15 consecutive days could I ask for help, and I could only accept enough days to cover my remaining FMLA leave. Now I have returned to the classroom with no sick days left for ongoing medical needs and must choose between working while unwell, balancing early morning appointments with teaching, or taking unpaid leave, even though colleagues are willing to help. Now that I have returned, given the number of days left in the school year, any additional days I need to take off due to my health will be unpaid, since there are no longer 15 consecutive days left for me to miss. My doctor recommended half days, but financially that is not possible under the current policy. Additionally, next week I will lose pay for necessary heart procedures that will require me to miss a day of school. Although colleagues continue to generously offer donated days to support my situation, both they and I feel frustrated by the restrictions of the current policy. My experience is not unique. The restrictions in our policy can force staff into unhealthy situations, affecting both teachers and students. While I believe the policy I experienced in a neighboring county might be too flexible, I do feel that adopting a more flexible policy in BCPS would provide much-needed peace of mind and vital support for our staff. By allowing teachers to access donated days without such restrictive conditions, we can foster a more compassionate and supportive work environment for everyone. The following are proposed change suggestions to improve the current policy. Allow teachers to access donated days before depleting all of their own, or at a minimum, permit them to retain any unused donated days as a reserve for when they return. Remove the stipulation that teachers can only ask and receive days for consecutive days missed. Increase the cap on donated days so that colleagues can provide greater support during extended medical absences. In closing, I know we all want our school system to be the best that it can be for both students and staff. By revising policy GC-BDC, we can demonstrate that we truly value and support our teachers, especially in their times of need. If a neighboring school division can offer a more supportive policy, there is no reason that Bedford County can't do the same. Let's work together to make Bedford County a leader in supporting its educators. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. That is all that has been signed up to speak tonight. Would anybody else like to speak? All right, hearing nobody else, I will close public comment. All right, we're gonna go back to 2.02 for the redistricting. Mr. Holbrook, did you have anything?
No, I don't really have any questions. I mean, that's the fourth time we've been over this. So something's gotta happen for sure. I mean, I'd like to see it happen this year, but I think that would be a little pressing on everybody. Yeah, something's gonna have to happen for sure.
Okay, we did this, or we tried to do this, it was brought up either last year or the year before. We had, one of the committees, took this on. Which committee was it? Was it facilities? Does anyone remember?
Might have been in the past. Yeah, I've never seen that one. Yeah.
Facilities took that on. Tonight, are you just asking for consensus that we agree to move forward with a plan, not necessarily this plan? Okay. Before we, just a plan. I mean, look, I think that anytime in business or anything else in life, you wanna make sure that if you're gonna do something, you do it right. And I don't think that we or anybody should ever adopt a ready, fire, aim mentality. It should be ready, aim, fire. Let's do it right. Let's give every community member the opportunity to comment and to get their affairs in order and to figure it out. I think giving the most time, I would love to got something done. It's just, it's not feasible. We're gonna rush it, and when you rush things, you make mistakes, and I personally don't wanna do that. So I would think that we need to get the ball moving, and this would have to be for the fall, after the next school year. Not yet. One other question. So with all this being said, the Chairman Hill has brought up several times, had several concerns about Forest Elementary, I believe. How can we still, with not taking action on this now, how can we alleviate some of those concerns that he's had moving into next year?
So we could revoke all zone transfers in that school. That's part of our current zone transfer policy. We did do that at Otter River 2 summers ago. We kind of went through, we had some classrooms that were overloaded, and we were recognizing that, for instance, a first grade class of 21 was much better. We had 6 zone transfers to make that class 27. So we could do some looking at those zone transfers and notifying families that we have capacity issues and revoking those zone transfers for anyone who's not currently at Forest. What you see, there's not that many there really. We've kind of limited it a little bit already, so there's only 13. 4 of them are out of county, so they're most likely employees because we don't know.
But when we changed the zone transfer policy last year, didn't we give the staff the ability to do that?
We did, and so.
And that could be for any school at any time, and that
Yes.
also could have been grade specific if I.
Right, it is. And you know, Mrs. Manley and I've talked specifically about zone transfer. She does have some siblings applying for kindergarten. And she feels like her numbers are kind of right where they need to be. She's not taking new families. She wants to honor the siblings of families that are already there. And so that's why her numbers are really low. We're just trying to be super careful there.
Okay, any other questions? No? No? Good. So I think we just need consensus to move forward with something. If we do that, would you guys utilize any committee in particular? Or obviously, we've had several board members that have had suggestions here tonight. I don't think we need to create any new committee, and I know facility and every committee is pretty busy. But how would we want to maybe consider talking, since we all really I don't think we need to do it in a work session. I think that someone should come up with this and go, this is where, and maybe doing all of these things. It may be first we're doing this, then we're gonna look at that, and it may be several steps, so. Any thoughts to that?
So I know IGA, we're gonna have to address the zone transfer policy, but I think before we can do that, I feel like we need to.
show them the numbers.
Yeah, we need to really know also about the facilities and what the facilities can hold and not hold, and look at those routes that, you know,
Okay.
we've looked at. I think you could probably put it in any committee except CPO, right? That's mine.
Maybe we don't need to necessarily decide that
Yeah,
now. And then also on the buses, I know we may save a bus route here. If we make any of these changes, the current audit that we're doing now, would we still be able to kinda, I don't wanna say throw them a curveball, but would we be able to say, hey, we're also considering this? Would that,
I've already talked to our consultants. She's actually coming next week to work with our transportation department, so I can, talk about the timeline. The audit is over. We're doing the audit for this year, for next year, so hopefully the audit will be over, and they're helping us change the routes by the middle of summer. We can start talking about what needed changes. Art Lipscomb, I know Leanne and Karen talked about Art. He is a wealth of knowledge about the forest zone. He knows those bus routes, so he feels very confident that he can adjust those. It just takes some time, but we can also get feedback from the auditing company as we go through this.
And we went with his suggestions, like he was with us when we were drawing lines and stuff to make sure it would work.
Alright.
He was with us the whole way.
He literally knew like every bus route, every stop.
how many kids were on the bus?
How many
He was-
kids were on the bus? It was just
Yeah,
mind blowing.
so we were taking
He
his
knew-
suggestions.
okay.
He already had some ideas of how to, like, I think Dr. Woodford said, how to make a couple of routes combined and make it, because we're already looking at efficiency for our routes, combining routes, just because we don't have full-time drivers all the time. So we're happy, we've done that so many times already.
Mr. Daniel, we were just talking, and when you look at it, we did consult our lead driver there, and looking at Otter River, because it's so big, I think the Lake Vista areas, like both of them go down 221, one takes a right on Paravel, one takes a left on 811 to get to TJ or to Forest Elementary, not as complicated. The Otter River is just big, and we're saying, can it go here, can it go here? So we were looking at that. I think the biggest thing, and we were talking about, the biggest thing that's the complex thing is the zone transfer policy.
Yeah.
It affects people, is it fair? When you get down to the end of it, when you guys make a final decision, I don't know if it's gonna be fair to everybody, that's just not gonna happen.
think
But
that-
what can be the most equitable and what do we have to do? That's the complicated one, I believe. I think the lines aren't gonna change that much.
The
And once you say the
redistricting
development's
is-
not coming,
Yeah,
so.
redistricting is convoluted by the zone transfer policy.
Yes.
So we can't work in a vacuum.
And I think this applies to a lot of the things that we have to deal with here is just because we've always done something some way, doesn't mean it's the best way to move forward. Things change, population has changed and has shifted, so certain ways of the ways that we've done things, we have to be flexible, we've gotta get to the line of scrimmage and be able to call audibles when we need to. But we have to take into consideration, all those other dominoes that then move because of the things that we're doing. So we have to do what is needed, and then it may be multiple
I
steps.
think what you're asking for is a consensus to say, let's spend the next year figuring this out, and then there will be a vote in the future on if the plan that we figure out is one that the 7 board members.
They tentatively have a September voting on a redistricting plan. Could it be sooner than that? Maybe, depends on what we put together, but you're gonna need that time, again, to do it right, to get input, to figure some of those things out. So yes, I would like to, last question, sorry. If we were to do this plan as it sits now, how would that affect any of our special needs kids? If it's something specific, are they still able to go to the school? I just don't wanna take that into consideration.
So we always take that in consideration for their least restrictive environment. We do have special programs for our early childhood special education, our adaptive programs. We don't have an adaptive program in every one of our elementary schools. So in some cases, we do have students coming from other schools to those programs. That wouldn't change. That's just part of our special education. We put them where we can meet their needs in the programs that meet their needs. So in that case, it wouldn't change unless we said we need a little bit more room or we have room and we move the program somewhere else. All of the kids would still go there, we'd still provide the transportation. And when we've kind of looked at it, we took a little bit of that in consideration, especially at New London. They have several preschool, ECSE, adaptive programs, and we actually kind of reserved some classrooms for them so that they wouldn't have to be moved, so.
Anything else?
I like the idea of waiting, but I also would like the opportunity to be given for parents to be able to go visit the other school that they may be transferred to as well. I don't know if you have any open houses or whatever, where people can get a little bit of,
Show off the others.
yeah, just so that they can buy into the new schools as well, so.
All right, do I have consensus to move forward with planning this redistricting for the forest zone?
No.
Okay. Yeah, you did.
Yes.
We don't have consensus.
I did not catch everybody, if you don't, it was only,
Jonathan?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
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 your consensus by majority.
Consensus by majority? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gonna move on to 3.01, the gifted plan. Dr. Sean Trusper.
Yes, every year we are required to get board approval for our gifted plan. The plan that you see is the same as last year with a very, very small change. So there's no presentation, just something for you to consider, and then we'll be asking for action next month. If there's any questions from the board, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions from this side? Good. All right, 3.02 SEAC bylaws, Ms. Jennings.
The SEAC is our Special Education Advisory Committee that we're required to have through regulations. This committee is made up of parents and community members, as well as advisors such as myself and a school board member, Mr. Hill. So they have reviewed their bylaws and they have proposed to change certain other bylaws that include some of their functions as well as their membership requirements. And so I've provided those bylaws to you as a board for you to review and for action for next month. And I can answer any questions.
I had a question on Article 3 membership.
Okay.
It's a little confusing. word composition of the committee is for 8 parents of persons with disabilities. I'm not understanding what that is all about.
For the 8 parents of persons with disabilities, is that what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that would be a parent. So it would consist of, instead of what we've had, the committee has had of up to 3 members, and 12 and all of that, they would instead look for 8 parents to be participants on that committee, and they have to be parents of students with disabilities or people with
Oh,
disabilities.
that's for the committee, okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Anybody? Good? All right. Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Read our 03 title grants, Dr. Wood.
Thank you. So the title grants are federal entitlement grants. We bring them forth every year during this month. Title I Part A provides resources for our qualifying elementary schools in the Stanton River and Liberty Zone. The money that we receive through that application, we use for lowering class sizes, adding reading specialists, professional development, and family engagement. Our Title II application provides funding for division support of salaries, also some tuition assistance for employees, and professional development in support of improving instruction. Title III is support for our English language proficiency learners. And so that provides enough money for tutors and materials to work with our EL students. And our Title IV Part A grant provides funds for programs and activities to improve students' academic achievement, helping students with a well-rounded education, and improving school conditions for learning. These 4 applications are presented for information this month, and we ask for action next month so that we can receive the money. They have to be signed by the superintendent and board chair by June 30th for submission. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or any of us can answer questions over the next month as you read them. Some of them are lengthy.
Any questions? I know it takes a lot of work to put these together, and you guys have to do that, so I'm very appreciative of that. I cannot stand the overuse of the word equitable, and so I'm kind of aggravated with that. And when you guys are answering the questions on that, if it asks that word, I understand using that for there. I just want to say that we provide equal treatment to all of our students, so thank you. Okay, we're good there. So then I guess we move on to 6.01, additional action items. First on that list is budget transfers. Mr. Hagler?
Yes, this was presented last month. There was a slight change made to this transfer request for our budget this year recommended by the Finance Committee. We were gonna transfer money over to maintenance, some money over for maintenance from transportation. They requested that if we don't do that, we may have enough funds in transportation to buy a couple buses right here at the end of the year. Because we switched off financing those, we're not buying as many, and so we're building up to that. So we're gonna fall a little bit behind on our replacement cycle, that this would help. So if there's funds there, I'll negotiate with Sunny Merriman to get some more buses here at the end of the year if the funds are there. So I switched the money of 200,000 coming from transportation, now it's coming from instruction to move to the maintenance department, so we can finish up the year. So that was a minor change from what we presented last month.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Hagler? Do I have a motion to approve?
Excuse me, Mr. Daniels.
Yep.
We need to wait for Dr. Hubach before taking action, please.
We're just gonna hang out.
Sorry.
Okay. This is why I said, please keep me honest. He did not hear anything that we said, so should we repeat it when he gets back?
Want to went through it fast
I think,
enough.
I think we should. Yeah.
Repeat it real quick.
Yeah, we will when he gets back.
otherwise I'd have to say in the minutes that he didn't vote, so.
I
You know.
Me and Dr. White ammonia. I got yelled at, so it's good.
I did not yell at you.
And 6.01, budget transfers, Mr. Hagler, just repeat quickly.
Let's see if I can do it real quick.
All right.
This was a budget transfer request presented at the last board meeting. The finance committee made a recommendation to make a little change. And instead of taking $200,000 from transportation, but we're taking it from instruction instead. So there might be some money there at the end of the year to buy some buses in our replacement cycle. So that was a slight change by the recommendation of the finance committee. And this is for your approval tonight.
Dr. Hubach, any questions?
I do not.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve 6.01?
So moved.
First by Mr. Holbrook, second. Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 6.01 is approved. 6.02 supplemental appropriations.
This one was presented at the last board meeting in anticipation of the budget being signed by the governor. He has done so. So this is impacting this year's budget, $950,000 coming from the state to support a $1,000 bonus for employees. We did make a change on here. This is a recommendation from staff and also the finance committee. So there was another whereas included in this. So I want to make sure the board knows what we're voting on tonight. This bonus is going to be treated as a retention bonus. That's a recommendation from the finance committee. It will be issued to current employees who are going to be returning under contract next year. So that's the stipulation. So those that are leaving would not receive that. It's for people that are staying and coming back under contract next year. And just want to make sure the board knows what they're voting on tonight. So that's the recommendation.
When would they receive the bonus then?
It would be in their May paycheck.
So before they come back?
If anybody leaves, it will be deducted from their final paycheck. Because we do have money in arrears on most of the 10-month employees. If they were to leave, if it was paid out and they said they were coming back and then over the summers they didn't come back, it would be taken back from their last paycheck. Yes, ma'am. And that will be communicated from the superintendent and this week. If this is the board's wish.
Any other questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve 6.02? Mrs. Purvis,
Second.
Dr. Hubach. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving 6.02 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 6.03, approval of propane bid.
This was a late ad, I apologize for that, working on redistricting and budget and all that. We had a propane bid out separate from our heating fuel and transportation fuel. You can see the bids that came in on that. We do recommend moving with and awarding the contract to Glenwood Energy for a 2-year contract, and that will lock in that price for 2 years. So that's the recommendation to the board.
Any questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve 6.03?
So moved.
Holbrook. Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? By the way, motion passes. All right, 6.04, approval of final fiscal year 25-26 budget.
The financial committee we met with this week to consider the superintendent's recommendation for budget for 25-26. The financial committee came back with some changes to that, and I'm gonna let Randy Hagler present that.
I'll try to do the best I can. The document that was presented in board docs showed really what originally was recommended by the superintendent and executive staff. Finance committee came in and recommended some changes to that. It's for the full board to kind of debate which one they take and which direction we go. And so I'll walk through some of the changes on the revenue, which doesn't change regardless of what you do, and then the expenditure was how we were gonna balance the budget. So I'll work through that and try to brief you on that. The state budget provided more money than what the governor's original budget back in December did from the General Assembly. So that was an uptick in the amount of money that we're getting there. We did have a request to the Board of Supervisors for 4.2, or close to 4.3 million. They provided 1 million in increased funding. We did get more from the state, less from the Board of Supervisors, but it didn't net out. So we needed to cut $1,156,000 from the budget on the expenditure side to make up for that revenue shortfall between the two of those. Any questions on that revenue? That's not gonna change with regardless of the plans. For both plans, the salary scales are gonna stay the same. We're recommending a 3% increase. That's a combination of a step and a COLA. So if you're at the top of the scale, you just get the COLA, not the step, because we don't go any higher. So, but most employees receive right around 3%, but not all. So that's the same in both plans. The insurance rates are the same for both plans, and the revenue same. The thing that kind of might change is the staffing standard and how we staff our schools. So I'll brief on that as I go down through the expenditure changes. As we were going forward, I based our insurance renewals off a 7% increase in rates. It's been a bad quarter, so I recommended to the Finance Committee we probably should go up to 10%. That was going to cost another $273,000 to the board. They agreed with that, and so we're going to increase that to make sure we keep that self-insured plan afloat. It's been a rough year again after last year. The next item is a technical adjustment. I looked at the third quarter forecast and I went up and down on different lines, and it all netted out to about a $5,000 savings. So not much, but some lines I had to adjust up and some down. The increase in teacher staffing standards was not in the original proposal from the superintendent. That was put in to balance the other things that the Finance Committee wanted to put back in that was part of the board's original budget that we passed about a month and a half ago. So we were, the things that were gonna be taken out, the Finance Committee asked to be put back in. You can see I've got line and I got things in yellow, hopefully to make it clear. There was the restoration step for employees. There were 7 years of frozen for new board members. There were 7 years we froze the steps for all employees after the recession in 2009-10. Teachers, aides, bus drivers, nutrition workers, and aides have all received their restoration steps, all 7 of them. Clerical workers, garage employees, maintenance employees, healthcare employees, IT professionals have not. They've only received 1 or 2 of those. We've never fully restored those. We estimated it cost about $200,000 to restore all that. The Finance Committee thought that was non-negotiable, we needed to get that done. So they asked for that to be put back in. So you see that $200,000 would not be used to balance the budget. The other item, the next item on there was the 1% additional to the 3% in cost of living adjustment. That's a big lift of $850,000 when we were cutting 1.1 out. The Finance Committee agreed that we probably couldn't do that at this time. So that is going to be removed from the budget. Security equipment. We had a recommendation to increase the security equipment mainly to maintain our replacement cycle of all of our cameras. Because we're counting on grants, but that doesn't always keep up with the camera replacement cycle. Our IT staff came up with a replacement cycle to make sure, I think it's 7-year replacement cycle on those before they're kind of done. The hardware and all that has to be done. So $150,000 increase in that. If we took that out of this one, the Finance Committee said if we took that out to balance the budget, we're kicking the can down the road. We need the money to maintain those systems, or we don't maintain them, one or the other. So they asked to put that money back in for this budget and recognize what the true cost is. Remove the SRO funding. That money was put in there. There is enough money in the budget to pay for the SROs in the 25-26 budget. There's $200,000 in the budget. It was in the current budget. Next year is the last year of the grant. The following year, it will go from $200,000 to an estimated $800,000 to $900,000 to pay for the SROs. The increase of $200,000 this year was, let's do $200 this year so we don't have to do another $600 or $700 next year. It might only be $400 or $500. So we're recognizing to do that. That money would be used to catch up on some security equipment this year because it's not going to be used for SROs. We would use it for equipment, but it's putting the money into that so when we have to pay the full cost of that, it wouldn't be as big as a cliff. The finance committee strongly recommended we put that in to kind of deal with that. We're just gonna have to deal with some more of that next year, but that would restore that back into the budget. And the final one was, we had recommended originally, and the board had approved this, that we have several 11-month elementary administrators, assistant principals that are on 11-month contracts. The recommendation is to move those to 12-month contracts. That would be $30,000, and the finance committee felt strongly to put that back in the budget. So if you put the restoration steps, the increase in security equipment, the SRO, and the contracts, if you put those back in, we needed to cut $580,000 somewhere else. The recommendation from the board is to cut that by increasing the staffing standards by a small amount, up by 1 or 0.75 on the staffing standards, which reduces the number of teachers we have in the schools. The caveat to this is that we still have all-in Virginia funding available. We'll probably have about $1.8 million that we have to spend next year. We're going into our last year on that. And Dr. Woodford said that that money could be used to offset that for 1 year. So that means we would go down 8 positions next year in the staffing standards. That's a budget cut. When I reappropriate the money at the end of the year, when we have any balance for next year, that all-in money, 580 would be used to sustain those 8 teachers next year. But I want the board to know, the following year, they go away. Theoretically, we gotta balance the budget next year. We don't know what the revenues and expenditures are gonna be the following year, but I would build those in. Those are cut out of the budget. The all-in money would sustain that for 1 year, then that's gone, and then we're left with new staffing standards. So that was what the finance committee debated a long time. We spent a lot of time on this budget, back and forth, where could we go? And so I hope I explained it clearly, what was in the original superintendent's recommended changes that we took to the finance committee, and then what the finance committee changed and is recommending to the full board. The board can discuss this and go either direction, or, so I'll stop at that point. Mr. Daniels is, was on the finance committee, so I'll let him speak and take it from here.
Yeah, so, I mean, not a lot of easy decisions when we make our wish list and we would like to do a lot of things, and, we have a very limited amount that we get, and, it seems like we always get the information that we need at the absolute last second when other things are already in process. So, putting the other teachers back in for this year to balance the budget was, there's, master schedules essentially are already made. And to have to, if we had to do that, which we don't really want to do, but if we had to do that, it would just really upset the apple cart. There's a lot of moving parts, and principals would be pulling their hair out. It's just a tough lift for them to do at this late stage. I feel, very strongly, I called a couple of you guys yesterday. I know Chairman Hill called others as well. We both feel very strongly that the options that the finance committee came up with is the way that we should go. Next year, if nothing changes, we will have to lose those 8 positions. We're kind of treating it this year like when we had ESSER funds, when we had COVID funds, we had extra teachers that were built in, and then each year, I know Mr. Hagler worked really hard to make sure, and the team worked hard to kind of slowly wean ourselves off of that, because then we're just paying for it and we had to find that money somewhere. So we debated long and hard about that, looked on spreadsheets with the numbers to try to figure out the least impact that we could do. But as you guys all know, money is always finite when it comes to what we need to do, and there are tough decisions everywhere that we look. So we do feel that this is the right way to go for where we're at this year. So if anyone has any questions, we can go through. I think, was anyone confused or needed any clarification from Mr. Hagler on, because I think what we should do is we should probably at some point say, does anyone want to have a motion to approve? Would be the superintendent's recommended budget, and then we say no to that, then we'd have a motion to approve the finance committee's budget. So we'll do it that way, if that's okay. If anyone has any questions, please ask either Mr. Hagler or anyone on the executive staff, or if I can help, I will.
The only thing I would say is, when we talked budget a couple of meetings ago, there was a lot of concern in the community about some of the options that were presented for ways to save money. One of those was closing a school, I know Susie G. Gibson was talked about. I think we should just make it clear to the community that those options were not selected.
Yeah,
You-
I think that someone had mentioned also when we were talking about the moving all the kids around, that we wanted to be transparent. As long as I've been on the board, and I know all of you guys very well, that we want to be extremely transparent. It's important for the community to know there are lots of options for things we can do. It was important to put those options out there just so they could see, like, these are options. By the way, we're not considering these, but these are things that we could do. But we want to do the best we can, I would say, with making the least amount of, we don't want it to hurt.
Right.
You know, and I think that was clear, and I think that was what all of our intent was in saying, hey, these are some of the options that we have. I don't think we were gonna do that, and another one on there was, you know, SROs. It's like, as a parent, you know, why? So, but again, those are options, so I think it was just trying to be transparent with it, and I think you're right, so none of those options that were on that sheet are here, correct?
Yeah, I think in
The ones
this,
that were underneath that potential options amounts are, none of those moved up into the budget to actually execute any of those.
I think in simplest terms, we don't have as much money as we need. So people came up with options of, you know, ideas, let's say, of how we could save money, but and some of those were concerning even to us, right? And I know for one was Susie G. Gibson, I got a lot of calls about that. This board, I can speak for the board in this statement, I think, is very pro Susie G. Gibson. If anything, we wanted to see it expanded, not taken away. So I just want to make that statement clear to the community that we're pro Susie G. Gibson. It's not closing. None of those options were selected, and we've found a way to balance the budget for this year. And it'll be challenging again next year.
It will be, and for the finance committee, they hear more details, but it's my job to paint a picture down the road, not to be the doomsday guy, but to say, you know, there are challenges to pay for all the SROs next year, another $600,000 for reversion next year, you know, healthcare costs go up. Is there gonna be revenue to cover all that, plus a step for employees? You know, those are concerns. If the revenue's not there, there's cuts on the expenditure side you've gotta do. So there's challenges ahead, and I'm keeping the finance committee up to date on those. So those options were presented, like, there's several more years that some tough goes here. So.
And just to be clear, when it comes to the finance committee, we passed this tonight, the work does not stop. We are going right back in, and we are looking again at every area that we can, and the staff has been great with trying to just kick over every rock and find suggestions. There is a bit of a game of chess. There's certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. Certain things that get passed at the state level or the federal level, you have to do them. There's not necessarily funding to do them. You know, one of the things that's in here, which you guys all know about, special needs aids, it's the absolute right thing to do is make sure that if it's in an IEP, we are doing it. And I know Ms. Jen worked really hard to do that. That's $4.5 million a year that we don't get funded. We have to do that. That's all local money. And until something changes, we're still gonna be doing that. So I think with that other list that we had, it was important to get that into the community. It's public, right? So that means our delegates and all of our representatives see that, or, you know, the Board of Supervisors see that, and then hopefully everyone can advocate for, this is why we need the money. We're not just, hey, we got extra money, let's just find something random to spend it on. There are legitimate needs, and I think it was important to get that out there. So, but the Finance Committee, we're gonna go right back to work and say, we know we got an uphill battle next year. Let's sharpen our pencils even more, see what we can find, and continue to present that in regular updates to the board and to the community.
If I can add to that, that list shows the value of those products. And it says, as he said, to the Board of Supervisors and others, this is why we need more than $1 million from them. And when you look at those lists, this is the value of Susie G. It doesn't mean we're taking away Susie G, because we're all an advocate for that. I think on one of the SWATs, that was one of the things that I even mentioned. And when, on a comical side, Dr. Cornett and I had to almost resuscitate the sheriff when he saw that, because this is the value of my background. I would never go into taking SROs off of a campus. In fact, I'd like to see them do more. So for me, the way that I explain that to the people in the public is this is what it's worth. This is what we're getting, this is what we're not getting. This is the importance of what we need. And there will be discussions of what is the difference between a need and a want down the street. That conversation has to be had. Protecting those things that were highlighted in that blue box they're not wants, those are needs. But it still is important to put that value out there.
I have a question. Mr. Hagler, and this is just me being new. What is the all-in fund you were talking about?
All-in funding was,
Why aren't we
and
using
I'll
all of
refer
it?
to Dr. Woodford, but it was funding that the state had available to help remediate and catch kids up in academics. And we had really a 3-year cycle in which to spend that, even though they gave us the money in January of 1 year, so about 2.5 years. So there's one year left to do that. It was a little bit over $3 million given to us, and that's been used for catching kids up in their academics through tutoring and remediation for, I think, truancy, and was there one other area that we kind of put some money into? Mainly in those areas, and we're monitoring all that, yes.
The other part of your question
The
was.
other part of it was, so you said there was $1.1 million left. Is that what I heard?
Well, I don't know right now, at the end of so what function thing will happen at the end of the year, it's kind of quirky. They already gave me all the money 2 years ago. So it's kind of weird that the state did that. So we will have an ending balance in our operating fund at the end of the year, that's gonna be inflated. Whatever we didn't spend from the all-in is part of that ending balance, has to be spent on all-in next year. So that's where I'll come back to the board in July or August, and I'll do a reappropriation of some of those funds to go back in the operating fund. Usually our ending balances with the Board of Supervisors goes into our maintenance reserve fund, something like that, one-time expenditures. But this is gonna be ending balance that has to be spent in the operating under all-in. So I'm estimating right now about 1.8. Dr. Whitford, if you want to say.
Well, I was just gonna say, and the idea behind it is smaller class sizes, teachers being able to really work with kids, so kind of falls under that, catching them up academically and that kind of stuff, so.
Yep, sorry about that. I think it's just, I didn't know what that was.
We throw out acronyms and names and that's.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
So what's the other budget that the board had, because I'm only seeing one.
This is what we had,
Is that from
this is what
last
we
year?
had approved, this is what we approved from several months
Oh,
ago,
okay.
right? And that was necessaries and wish lists.
But we didn't actually,
We moved that budget ahead, but that was, it was not finalized because we needed to see what the revenue was gonna be from the state and from Board of Supervisors.
so when we vote, we're voting on that, or we're voting on this, is that correct?
No, we're voting on.
You're gonna vote on a
You're voting-
revised.
You're voting on the revised.
Only on the revised, okay.
So.
And if there's a consensus, you can,
Oh,
Yeah.
you can just choose which one, and if you think, if there's consensus to
Okay.
go for one, you can just go through
Okay.
one, vote on that.
alright, I'm gonna.
I do have a final document, if you have consensus, that I'll have you look at the final number.
Okay.
Cause I didn't know which one, so I wanna present you with documents here.
I would like to ask for consensus to vote on the amended 25-26 budget that the Finance Committee has recommended. Do I have consensus on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna pass out some to the board members, and one of you can read just the final number at the very bottom, 136 million, and just read the whole number and recommend the pass of the budget. I'll give you 2 pages. Detailed line item, salary scales, insurance, everything, staffing standard, everything will be posted online for tomorrow for the public and for our employees to see. All the supporting documents for this, so very transparent on anything you wanna see that supports all these numbers. So I'll walk around and pass this out.
When do contracts go out?
We are targeting to try to get those out by next Friday. We're working through that.
Targeting.
But that's our target.
I mean, it's just,
Targeting, it might be the following Monday
everybody
or
just
Tuesday.
delayed it, we're a receiver of funds, we don't make our own, the money tree is long gone. But nothing like getting it out at the absolute last second to make all of our staff sweat. So it's been a lot of work, and I appreciate, Mr. Hagler and his team and everybody here for all the work that they've done, so. Okay. Alright, so someone has to make a motion to approve the 25-26 budget for that grand total. 136,612,318.
I'm good.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the 25-26 budget of $136,612,318.
I have a motion by Mr. Knight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. Any discussion?
I just wanna say that there are other schools divisions that are not near as transparent as you guys are, and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Start working on those contracts. All right, 6.05, approval of policy updates presented at the April 10th, 2025 board meeting. Mr. Dupere.
For action, the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee met on March 10th, 2025 to review proposed revisions of the following policy. GCBDC, sick leave donation. Proposed edits include addition of requirement for an employee to be a VRS Plan 1-2 employee to receive sick leave donation, and an employee who is a member of the sick leave bank may use either the sick leave bank or the sick leave donation plan within the same year, but not both.
All right. Do I have any questions? No? Do I have a motion to approve the policy updates?
So moved.
Mr. Purvis on first, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Say,
Pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-37A17A, for the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of civic employees of Bedford County Public Schools, for briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill to go into closed session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? We're in closed session. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Holbrook? Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. John?
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 Right. Do I have a motion regarding closed session items?
I make a motion to approve the legal documents as presented.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Hubach. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Number 8, approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Ms. Purvis, do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Number 9, matters from the board, committee reports. We'll start with Dr. Hubach.
Let's see, IGA didn't meet, CPO.
We discussed.
There you go, jump on in. You guys can tag team that, that's fine.
We can cheat a little bit.
Yeah. You can read.
Yes, we definitely discussed dress code and some other policies regarding graduation and those sorts of things, but family life curriculum is pretty much set. That is probably the big advance. Still working on the elementary, but that won't be implemented until next year. Laurel School Board met and things have actually been pretty good there. They've approved some new building projects and they have a new transportation bus allowing special needs kids to be able to transport to field trips and whatnot, and they've been doing great, so that's all.
So STEM Academy, we meet next Tuesday, May 27th, so we have not met for a while. And they're gearing up for their graduations. Gov School, there were several things that happened. One was they had their graduation ceremonies and all of their scholarships on Sunday. I was not able to attend that, but I heard that it went well. I did work at the research symposium that they had on April 23rd, where the students would present their research and what they did, and then we would just give them some feedback on that. We also met for our regular Gov School meeting May 7th, and which was yesterday, and we discussed the budget, which we are going to be charging $5,000 per student, which is a $300 per student increase for next year to cover the rising cost of supplies and so on. So that is an increase for the Gov School. And the CPO meeting, Dr. Hubach already talked about, but we also talked about Chromebooks and the usage in each of the different schools. Right, we don't have individuals, some of them we're working on Saturdays more than but we're gonna continue to do some more evaluations on the Chromebooks as well. And the dress code, we're gonna continue to talk about that next time. Yeah, and thank you to Dr. Kubak for working on the family life.
Yeah, just wanna talk a little bit about the CTE. We had a reverse career fair at Liberty High School on the last day of April. And it was about 15 students were there. They did a fantastic job. I was able to talk to several of them. A lot of the trades ended up coming out, so it was a really good opportunity. It was a great novel idea. I'm excited for it to develop in the other schools as well, but Liberty did a great job putting that on. Also with the facilities committee, we've got a bunch of projects coming up this summer that we're trying to get accomplished. We've got the big ones we're kind of working on is Forest Middle School baseball field, practice field, take a look at that as well. Bedford Primary, windows in Manita, Stewartsville HVAC, the wastewater at Stanton River, the lighting project at Bedford Primary, and then we just voted on fixing, there's some HVAC leaks that need to get fixed at JF that are causing some issues there, so trying to get that done. So a lot of stuff, Mr. Bell and Mr. Anderson are really very busy this summer.
Well, the PPEA committee met on April 29th. And we are, as of now, we're $253,068 below the original. And of course, we hadn't even started yet, so. We're gonna have a groundbreaking at Stanton River and Liberty High School, May 27th for this project. So along with all the other stuff going on in 25, they're gonna be doing the asbestos abatement, new roof and downspouts, paint, relocating all the low voltage at Stanton River. That's just this summer. And then we're gonna start the end of this month, as a matter of fact, on that stuff. So by 2026, should have the aluminum canopies, the lights, replacing the existing storm piping, stuff like that.
Right.
So,
Good to see it
moving
rolling.
along.
Good to see it rolling. Mr. Knight?
No committee meeting.
I'll just talk briefly, we kind of covered a lot about finance, so basically covered it all. We're just gonna get right back to work, no rest for the weary, and we're gonna just keep getting after it and keep reporting back on any other things that we can find. And for IGA, we'll get another meeting on the books. I think we have a zone transfer, but we kind of need to look at, so. And you do have something else?
Yes,
Yeah, it's
that's
okay,
all right, I
yeah,
forgot.
you're good.
So Shane Bright, the students went to the science fair for Gov School, the Virginia State Science Fair, and I think there was 3 or 4 students won awards, and they were all from Bedford County. So I was very proud of them. Shane Bright from Jefferson Forest was awarded 2nd place in physics. Leo Chang, also from JF, was awarded honorable mention in microbiology. And Shane Bright and Leo Chang, both from JF, will attend the International Science and Engineering Fair with Miss Chamont, who is the instructors there. So it was just those 2, Shane Bright and Leo Chang. And the other big information is that Dr. Smith will not be returning after next year. So it's good. He's the superintendent basically of Gov School. And so he will be teaching and working next year, but after that, he will be leaving. He's gonna be retiring. I think he's been there for over 35 years, so he's been there a while. So the position is going to be posted in September for his position. So we'll give you more details on that later.
All right, comments and concerns from school board members. We're gonna start on this side with Mr. Knight.
Sure. First. So I wrote it down because my memory is bad when I'm sleeping. I'd like to say first and foremost, thank you to Bedford County, to the Bedford County community, the students, parents, teachers, and the staff for allowing me to be on this board and serve our students and our parents. It's been a pleasure to be involved at this level. I believe that over the last 2 school years, we have accomplished some good things for our system, and I believe that this board, current and future members, will continue to work hard at making as many improvements as possible. I truly believe that my fellow board members serve in their roles because they desire to help our students have the best opportunities for education possible. Since I joined the board, 2 significant changes have occurred in my life, including a new position with my company that requires me to be out of town every week. In fact, that position just got extended into February of next year, so it's going to be longer than I thought. And therefore, I do not have the time available to properly serve this position. With that being said, I'm stepping down from my board position, my board membership, in order to allow someone with more time who can better serve our community to step in. The position needs a person that can give more attention to the problems at hand. I trust that this board will select a proper temporary replacement, and the community will select a proper long-term replacement. I will continue to be involved in our community and continue to help improve education opportunities for our students as long as I possibly can. However, my role as an official ends on May 31st, 2025. I thank you again for all the support, and I pray that God continues to bless you all.
Well, good luck.
Thanks.
Hate to see you go. You've been on it, what, almost 2 years now?
Two school years.
2 school years. Well, that's the only comment I got.
Been great getting to know you, John. I've been very short on this board myself. I would also like to mention, I know I'm not sure about the rest, but I know the elementary school students were working through SOLs this week. And I was able to go to Boonesboro Elementary School as they were finishing up that, and just, I know from the experience of my kids, the teachers, the staff, the principals did a fantastic job preparing these students for the SOLs. I was really pleased with my students, how seriously the teachers took it, but also, made it fun, made it exciting. They, as far as parent support, we were able to write letters of encouragement to our students and all that. So I was really pleased at how that was handled, and I look forward to when we get those results later on this month.
So, first of all, I want to say, and I said this earlier, but Johnny, we're going to miss you a lot. You've been awesome. And I also want to thank all the students, teachers, administrators, and staff for their hard work this year. We are almost done. 11 days now? That's awesome. I also want to especially recognize our teachers. I had the privilege of attending the Teacher of the Year banquet last week. Congratulations to all the teachers who went above and beyond your regular duties to create an atmosphere of excellence in your classrooms. And as we know, teachers cannot do this alone. So thank you to the parents, the support staff, and the administrations for your dedication and hard work. It truly takes a village to prepare the next generation for adulthood, especially in this day and age, and your hard work does not go unnoticed. I also want to publicly thank the central office administrators and staff, along with my fellow school board members, who have helped me navigate my own responsibilities as a school board member. And one of the things I learned recently was the procedures that need to be followed whenever there are concerns throughout the district. And I want to take the time to share this with everyone in case there are some people who don't know where to go for help when challenges present themselves. Whether you're a parent or a student or a teacher or any kind of staff person. The first choice, of course, is to go to your own teacher, or if it's a teacher, going to the principal or vice principal in your local school. This applies to even parents. Go to your principal or your teachers. Hopefully, most conflicts will be resolved through good communication and basic conflict resolution in the local school. However, if you have not been heard, or if you've gone through all of the different things that you need to do in order to make your voice heard, and you still do not have, don't feel like you are heard, you can come to the board as well. So there is a complaint form that sometimes teachers do not know about, or parents and students do not know about. It's the complaint form GBLA-R. It's on board docs. You just go to the Bedford County Board Docs, go to policies, change the drop down on the left to rules, and then you click on G personnel, and from there you navigate to GBLA-R, and the form can be clicked on from there. So again, you can add, if you go through the chain of command, that's the best way to deal with any kind of conflict resolution, and I want to encourage everyone to please do that. And so finally, I want to wish everyone a wonderful summer, but not until the SOLs are done and the final exams. And to the class of 2025, may you know peace, joy, and prosperity, and may your future be blessed as you continue to bless those around you. God bless.
Thank you. Johnny, it has been a pleasure to serve with you, and I've always appreciated your keen insight and depth of thinking into the problems that present themselves, and you will be greatly missed. Congratulations to all the graduates that have worked hard throughout this year and are continuing to work hard to get those final test scores in. Good summer, and the best to you in the future. A lot of things have happened this year, and it has been a busy school year with a lot of the things that Mr. Dupere mentioned in his announcement, but I think it's been a very productive year, and some good things have happened in the school system, and I look forward to more of that in the future, even though we have some hard decisions to make. That's what we're here for.
All right. Mr. Knight, it's been just, like everyone said, it's been just an absolute pleasure getting to know you, knowing what you're all about. I think you nailed it. Just your ability to analyze every situation, look at it from different angles that I myself might not see, I think has been a tremendous asset, for us as a board. I think you treat everybody with such respect, and I definitely know that's going to be truly missed. So whoever sits in that chair is going to have some pretty big shoes to fill. You deal with things very humbly. There's always heartfelt, I can tell that you wrestle. I know you wrestle. You wrestle with the decisions. I think we all do, but I can watch you and see, and I know, he's thinking about something over there. And it's just been a real pleasure to get to know you. You certainly will be missed. You've been a tremendous asset to this board, and you should take a minute to realize you've accomplished a lot. You've helped us accomplish a lot on this board, and I think we're better for it. I think everyone in the county is better for having you been on this board. So I truly just want to say thank you from me. We've made it, I guess, to graduation. We're almost there. 11 days. It's been a long ride. I think that we've gotten a lot done this year, but for the staff here and us board members, the work doesn't stop. We have to keep going. You kind of pat yourself on the back. We got through another year, and you get right back to work. So, but for the teachers, the accomplishments, how far we've come, and this year has been great. And again, this is only the beginning. So I think that we have a bright future. A lot of tough decisions, and we're going to deal with that. But we're going to deal with it very open, very transparent, and we're going to get input. And we're not going to be able to please everybody with every decision. But no, just like Mr. Knight, we take those decisions very seriously, and we try very hard to make the right decisions. But congratulations to the students, congratulations to the teachers, staff, everybody for getting our kids through this year. This graduation is pretty special to me. Last year, I had 2 kids graduate. This year, my one son, Cash, who is a special needs student, he's got cerebral palsy, he's in a wheelchair. He will graduate from JF this year. His entire team, the entire SPED team over there at JF is unbelievable. And my experience with it has been just fantastic. As a parent, there's always times where you just don't understand, like you have certain ideas for your kids and you have certain, wants and needs, but they have to show, there are certain needs that you have to get. It's up to you as a parent to do. It's not necessarily up to the school. The school is trying to prepare your child for life after. And the best thing is just meeting in those IEP sessions and just talking things through and saying, okay, we're a team. This is how we have to go after it. Okay, break, let's get to work. And it's been fantastic. He can go back to school after he graduates. He goes back and forth. He doesn't like getting up early. I'll tell you that. He doesn't like when I gotta put him to bed during Monday Night Raw, but he will, but so he's going to, he's been working at school 3 days a week. He gets to go to work. And he goes to work at Craveables, which is an ice cream shop for special needs. And his former teacher, for Bedford County teacher, Ms. Perkins, runs that organization. So he's going to get to work with his buddy a couple days a week, and he's going to get to spend some time doing some more therapy and just getting to kind of be our right-hand man at home and getting to enjoy some life. He's going to want to go back and visit his aides. He's going to want to go back and visit his teachers. He's very close to Deputy Hopkins. He's been in the vehicle before in the front. He's not. He's a good kid. But it has been such a pleasure having him in Bedford County Public Schools for the last 3.5 years. And I know that there's going to be days every day he's going to truly miss being there, but he's on to the next stage of his life, and he continues. I say this in IEP meetings. He always continues to impress me with what he can do, and the teachers and aides and staff have gotten so much out of him, and I'm so incredibly grateful. I cannot express how grateful I am. When he was a baby, I was told, hey, you have some decisions to make. He doesn't have any brain function. He has proven everybody wrong in his 18 plus years. So kudos to everybody at JF. And I know there are stories like this throughout our division. And I always say share your victories. And I just think that we really should. So again, bottom of my heart, incredibly grateful. A lot of great things happening. And congratulations to all of the students this year. I will be at the JF graduation. We obviously got people coming in. He's going to keep me pretty busy. But just congratulations to everybody. So that's all I have. With that, do I have a motion?
Mr. Daniels,
Oh.
did you want to share next steps for District 1 seat?
Oh, yeah.
Or I can.
Yeah, can you? 'Cause I got really deep
I'm
emotions there. So yeah, sorry.
Well, I spoke with Mr. Hill earlier this morning and I thought, anyway, whatever. We will be putting out tomorrow morning the invitation to apply for a District 1 seat. That will run for 1 week. Once those applications are received, they will be shared with the board. The board will then decide who to invite for an interview, and those interviews will take place in open session at the June 12th meeting. And the board at that time will then decide who to appoint for the remainder of this calendar year.
Excellent.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the
Thank you.
spot
That's
there.
it. I need to give you something to just throw at me. All right. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, first,
Second.
Second by Ms. Purvis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.